Your badge, please, and your laptop. That's what Carla from HR said. Her hands were clasped in front of her, knuckles white, as she avoided my eyes. I stood there, blinking, trying to process the words. The conference room was empty except for us, the blinds drawn tight, the air stale. My mind scrambled for context, for reason, but I only found silence, an empty space where my sense of safety had once lived. I remembered the walk down the hallway, the way people had looked up, then quickly looked away, as Carla beckoned me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Now, she was pushing a cardboard box across the table toward me. You can collect your personal items before you go. She said it quietly, like she was embarrassed for me. Like I was already gone. My name is Daniel Park. I am 39 years old, and until that morning, I was the senior product manager at Archer Systems, a mid-sized but ambitious tech company in downtown Seattle. I'd worked there for 6 years, building my department from scratch, winning contracts, mentoring the junior staff. My entire professional identity was woven into that place. I'm married, no kids, one mortgage, and a dog that waits by the front door every night for me to come home. This is the story of how everything fell apart. Back then, work was everything. I'd always believed that if you kept your head down, treated people fairly, and delivered results, you'd be safe. Maybe not loved, but respected. I grew up in a household defined by discipline and order. My father was an engineer, my mother a nurse, and I carried that sense of structure into adulthood, into my marriage, into every project I managed. My job at Archer was the first place I truly felt like I belonged. I'd been hired as a mid-level analyst, but within a year, I was running the new products team, a role I earned by working late, volunteering for crisis assignments, and smoothing over conflicts others couldn't touch. I was proud of that. Proud of the team I'd built, Marcus, the quiet genius with a talent for code, Stephanie, who could charm even the most resistant client, and Tom, who was as ambitious as he was loyal. We worked long hours together, shared Friday pizzas, and even did the occasional trivia night. Success felt earned, not given. Archer was growing, and with each quarterly review, I saw my name a little higher on the org chart. But looking back, I can see the edges fraying before I did. The first cracks appeared in routine things, a meeting I wasn't invited to, a new process implemented without my input. The product roadmap, once my domain, began to shift without warning. At the time, I blamed it on corporate growing pains. Startups change fast, I told myself. You have to be flexible. I ignored the sense of unease that followed me home at night, the way my wife, Ellen, would ask, "Are you sure you're okay?" as I stared at my laptop long after dinner. I brushed her off. Just a busy month. I believed it. My relationship with my boss, Peter, was complicated. He was charismatic, articulate, a natural leader, the kind of man who made everyone laugh during all-hands meetings, who swept into rooms with the confidence of someone born lucky. I respected him. Sometimes I envied him. And I trusted him. He was the one who'd championed my last promotion, who'd told me, "Daniel, I need someone I can count on when things get messy." I thought that meant something. There were warning signs, of course. The occasional sharp tone in meetings, the way he'd take credit for a win but distance himself from a loss. I shrugged it off. That was the game, right? If I just kept performing, I'd be fine. That's what I told myself, even as Peter started inviting my junior, Tom, to more strategy sessions. Even as I noticed a subtle shift in office politics, people who used to seek my advice now waited for Peter's nod before speaking. I tried to ignore it. I kept my head down, finished my projects, and stayed late to help others when I could. But the feeling of being on the outside grew. I found myself triple-checking emails, rehearsing answers to questions I used to answer instinctively. I started waking up at 3 a.m. with my mind racing. Ellen worried. "Something's wrong," she said one night, her hand on my arm. "You're not yourself." I told her I was just tired, that I needed a vacation. She didn't believe me, but she let it go. Then came the meeting. Not a scheduled one, an impromptu gathering in the small fourth-floor conference room. Peter was already there when I walked in, standing by the window, arms folded. Carla from HR sat at the table, a thick folder in front of her. The room felt too small, too quiet. I glanced at Peter, searching his face for reassurance, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. Daniel, Carla began, her voice formal. We've received several complaints regarding your conduct and management style. Effective immediately, your employment is terminated. It felt like the floor dropped out from under me. I could barely process her words. What complaints? I asked, my voice coming out thin and far away. Carla pushed the folder toward me. Inside were printed emails, anonymous complaints about hostile leadership, unprofessional behavior, intimidation. None of it made sense. My hands shook as I flipped through the pages. The words didn't sound like anything I'd ever said or done. Peter cleared his throat. We have to take these seriously, Daniel. You know how it is. He sounded apologetic, but his expression was blank. I stared at him, waiting for a wink, a sign that this was some elaborate mistake. There was nothing. Is this a joke? I said, my voice rising. I've never, these are lies. Carla tapped a page with her pen. Several sources. Consistent patterns. We have to act in the interests of the company. I looked at Peter. He was still avoiding my eyes. His hands were steady. I'm sorry, Dan, he said. It's out of my hands. That was the moment. The betrayal wasn't just the firing, it was the way Peter stood there, letting it happen. The way years of loyalty and late nights evaporated with a few anonymous emails and a scripted apology. I gathered my things in silence. My hands shook as I stuffed framed photos and pens into the cardboard box. As I walked out, I saw Tom through the glass wall of his office, his back to me. He didn't turn around. The next few days were a blur. I slept badly, waking from dreams of being trapped in windowless rooms. Ellen tried to comfort me, but I was too numb to talk. I kept replaying the meeting in my mind, searching for missed warnings, signs I should have seen. I emailed Peter, asking for an explanation, a real one. He never replied. I tried to appeal to HR, but Carla's emails were curt, the decision is final. Please refer to the severance agreement. I read the agreement over and over, looking for loopholes, for a way to restore my reputation. There was nothing. Word spread quickly. Within a week, recruiters who once called me monthly stopped returning my emails. LinkedIn messages from industry friends dried up. I heard rumors that I'd been let go for cause, no specifics, just a shadow over my name. Archer's leadership team posted a generic announcement about organizational restructuring and new leadership opportunities. Tom was promoted to my role almost immediately. I felt like I was drowning. Even at home, I found it hard to connect, to Ellen, to the world outside. I sat for hours at the kitchen table, staring at the wall, trying to puzzle out how it could all unravel so fast. Ellen grew frustrated. You didn't do anything wrong, she said, voice fierce. They can't just wreck your life like this. But they had. The worst part was the isolation. People I'd mentored, helped get raises, even considered friends, none of them reached out. It was as if I'd never existed. I began to question everything, my competence, my judgment, even my worth as a husband. One afternoon, I caught myself staring at my own reflection in the hallway mirror, wondering who I'd become. Bills piled up. Severance would last a few months, but job prospects felt impossible with the cloud hanging over my head. I applied to dozens of positions, tailoring my resume for each one. I heard nothing back. Ellen started working extra shifts at the hospital. Our conversations grew tense, clipped, edged with worry about money, about the future. I watched Archer from a distance. On LinkedIn, Tom posted about driving innovation and leading the team into exciting new territory. Peter was quoted in an industry journal, taking credit for a product I'd spent 2 years developing. It felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. The urge to fight back gnawed at me, but I didn't know where to start. Everything I'd built had been swept away by anonymous complaints, by people I once trusted. I spent a week sifting through old emails and project files, looking for anything that might prove my innocence. I found nothing, at least, nothing that would matter to HR. One night, after Ellen had gone to bed, I sat at my desk and opened a blank document. I started writing everything I remembered: meetings, conversations, emails, decisions. I tried to reconstruct where things had gone wrong. As I wrote, a pattern began to emerge: a handful of moments when Peter had contradicted my recommendations, then later presented them as his own, times when Tom had asked for access to my project files, just to help out, subtle shifts in team communication that I'd shrugged off. It dawned on me that this wasn't just office politics. It was a campaign, one designed to remove me, to clear the path for Tom. But why? And how had they orchestrated it so convincingly? I started reaching out, tentatively, to ex-colleagues, people I thought might still care. Most ignored me. A few sent polite responses but had nothing to say. Finally, one person agreed to meet, Stephanie, who'd left Archer a month before my firing for a job at a rival firm. We met in a quiet cafe near her new office. She looked uncomfortable, glancing over her shoulder as she spoke. "I'm sorry, Dan," she whispered, "but things got weird after you left. Peter started rewriting history, said you'd been difficult for months. Tom told everyone you'd been blocking product launches. People were afraid to defend you." I asked about the anonymous complaints. She hesitated, then lowered her voice. "I heard Tom and Peter talking once. They were laughing about how easy it was to get HR to believe them. Said they'd been building a case for weeks." I felt sick. It wasn't just paranoia, they'd set me up. I thanked Stephanie, my thoughts racing. If they'd manufactured evidence, there had to be traces, emails, messages, something. I just had to find it. It took weeks. I pored over every digital trace I had access to. My Archer email was gone, but I'd backed up a few key files. There, a Slack export from months before, saved out of habit for a project post-mortem. I opened it, searching for anything suspicious. One thread stood out: a conversation between Tom and another team member, Liz, about rewriting the summary for HR. The language was careful, but the implication was clear: Tom was orchestrating a narrative. I dug deeper, cross-referencing dates and names. Soon, a web of coordinated messages emerged: private jokes about the coup, subtle digs at my leadership, references to our mutual benefit. I realized I needed more. If I wanted to clear my name, I'd need irrefutable evidence, something Archer's HR couldn't ignore. I reached out to Liz, framing it as a friendly check-in. She was hesitant, but after a few exchanges, she admitted she'd felt pressured by Tom to support the official story. She forwarded me a copy of a draft HR complaint, one Tom had revised before submission. Her email, though brief, was enough to suggest collusion. As the pieces fell into place, my despair gave way to anger. Not wild, unfocused rage, but something colder, a resolve to fight back, not just for myself, but for the truth. I reached out to a labor attorney, explained my situation, and sent over the emails and messages I'd collected. The attorney, a woman named Sandy, was methodical and direct. "This isn't the first time I've seen something like this," she said. "But you'll need to be patient. Building a case will take time, and Archer will fight." As we worked together, I learned how to document everything, every communication, every detail, every inconsistency. Sandy advised me to file a formal complaint with Archer's board, outlining the evidence of coordinated misconduct. We prepared a timeline, annotated with messages, drafts, and statements. I was terrified, but also determined. Eventually, I submitted the complaint to Archer's board of directors. Sandy coached me on how to present the evidence, not as a desperate ex-employee, but as someone who cared about the integrity of the company. I included Stephanie and Liz's messages, the Slack exports, and a summary of the timeline. It was meticulous, fact-based, impossible to ignore. Weeks passed. I heard nothing. Every day felt like a tightrope walk, waiting for a call, an email, a sign that someone believed me. Ellen was supportive, but the tension in our home was palpable. I kept applying for jobs, kept getting nowhere. Then, one morning, I got a call from an unknown number. It was Archer's legal counsel. "Mr. Park, the board has received your complaint and is opening an internal investigation. You may be contacted for follow-up interviews." I hung up, heart pounding. It was only a beginning, but it was something, an admission that I hadn't just imagined the betrayal. I told Ellen. For the first time in months, she smiled. The investigation dragged on for weeks. I was interviewed twice, once by an external HR consultant, once by a member of the board. I repeated my story, provided documentation, answered every question as calmly as I could. Meanwhile, rumors swirled on industry forums, Archer under investigation for wrongful termination. I watched from the sidelines, cautious but hopeful. Finally, a letter arrived from Archer's board. Their language was careful, deliberately neutral, but the message was clear: the board has identified procedural irregularities in your termination. We are offering you a settlement, and are reversing the cause-related designation in your employment record. The individuals responsible are no longer with the company. Peter was gone. Tom was gone. No public explanation, no fanfare, just a quiet update on the company page: leadership changes. I received a formal apology, a financial settlement, and, most importantly, a letter stating that my termination had been rescinded, my record cleared. The relief was overwhelming, but not simple. I felt vindicated, but also hollow. I'd lost a year of my life, watched my reputation dragged through the mud, seen friendships vanish in the face of corporate self-interest. I wasn't sure what to do next. Job offers returned, slowly. Recruiters, now armed with the truth, reached out. I interviewed at a few places, but my heart wasn't in it, not at first. I needed space to breathe, to figure out who I was without Archer. Ellen and I took a weekend trip to the coast, the first in years. We walked the empty beach, talking about everything and nothing. I realized how much I'd neglected her, how much I'd allowed work to define my self-worth. She forgave me, or at least, she tried. We started to heal, one conversation at a time. I eventually took a new job at a smaller firm, one that valued transparency and integrity. The pay was less, but the culture was healthier. I rebuilt my confidence, step by step. Some nights, I'd wake up sweating, heart racing, replaying the betrayal in my mind. But the anger faded, replaced by something like acceptance. Sometimes I wonder what happened to Peter and Tom. I hear rumors, consulting gigs, brief stints at other companies, nothing lasting. I don't wish them harm. I just hope they never have the chance to do what they did to me, to anyone else. I'm not the same man I was before. I'm less trusting, but also wiser. I know now that loyalty can be a one-way street in the corporate world, that people will rewrite history to suit their ambitions. But I also know that the truth, though fragile, can still matter. That fighting for your name, quietly, methodically, without fanfare, is sometimes the only revenge worth having. The dog still waits for me by the door every night. Ellen and I eat dinner together, no laptops in sight. My life isn't perfect, but it's honest. And that's enough.